webinar. I prepared a slideshow to accompany me here. Let me see if we can share that somehow. There we go. I think you can see the slideshow now.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So I think the title of the webinar is a little bit different to the title on the slide, but it's thereabouts, right? Lean and learning in a digital world. So I've been firstly, I'm Daryl Powell, Chief Scientist and Research Manager at SINTEF Manufacturing in Norway. I have a master and a PhD in Lean, and I've been working with Lean transformation for over 15 years now, both studying and guiding these Lean transformations. So I think, but more recently, since I was engaged in developing and deploying the Lean program at Kongsberg Maritime Subsea for a 5-year period from 14 to 2019, I learned a lot about Lean, and actually I learned a lot about learning. And had you asked me 6-7 years ago what learning had to do with Lean, I would have said nothing at all. But actually now it has everything to do with successful Lean transformation. So I'm going to share some of those experiences and learnings with you this afternoon. Together with Mano and the guys and girls over in the Han University of Applied Sciences, we have a very exciting project at the moment in Europe called Lean 4.0. And of course, it's looking at the integration between Lean and Industry 4.0 as a platform. But actually, the most important aim of this project is to discover ways of educating the operations managers of the future. So we're really looking at learning how to become an effective manager and being able to lead Lean and digitalization transformations within industry. I think I put some flags up there just to symbolize who are involved in the project. So we have Belgium represented through University of Ghent. We have the Germans here from University of Osnabrück. The Dutch, of course, here, and the Norwegians through SINTEF and the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And of course, if we're going to succeed with learning, and I think this was a critical part of the actually the call for the proposals for these type of projects. Europe were heavily focusing on both physical and virtual mobility. So the theme of today's talk is actually blended network action learning. Blended being the real enabler of virtual mobility within and across countries within the European Union right now. So I think that's something to have in the back of your mind as we go through the webinar today, this distinction between physical and virtual mobility. So I think before we start, we should take a step back and think about what's happening around us in the world today. I mean, we're in a world full of change, right? European Union right now talking about what they call the twin transition. So this move towards sustainability and digitalization, the twin transition. And I think that these types of changes really puts industry and organizations under a lot of pressure. And unfortunately, those organizations that are unable to adapt to change are soon in trouble. And of course, this adaptation, it's achieved only through learning. So the formula you see on the screen now, L greater than C, actually stems from this action learning of Roger Evans back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, of course. And the idea here is that the rate of learning have to be greater than the rate of change for companies, individuals, organizations to survive. So I think that's a lot of importance in this formula itself, L greater than C. Funnily enough, it was actually the title given to the change program way back in 2000 early 2000s when I was working as a graduate engineer and a continuous improvement engineer at Schaeffler UK in Llanelli, just outside of Swansea in Wales. So it was back then when this L greater than C was really drilled into my mind, but I hadn't really understood the importance of learning at that moment. Thinking about digital transformation, digitalization is the hot topic right now. It's sexy. Everybody wants to do some digitalization and implement digital technologies within their organizations. But of course, we need to know why. Why and what are these digital tools really going to enable us to do? So I think we need to approach these digital transformations with some kind of caution. And I mean, if we look back to the decades previous with lean transformations or rather lean implementations, I think there's a lot to be learned there, because any kind of change program, any kind of change management, I think research shows that 80 or 90% of these change programs fail to deliver on what we're expecting them to deliver. And I think we need to be aware of that when we're approaching digitalization and Industry 4.0. And I think part of the reason behind that is, of course, this very principle you see in front of you now. It's called the principle of insufficient mandate. And I think any change, particularly lean transformation, we say that a lean transformation is a cognitive transformation far before an organizational one. It's about changing the way we think, particularly managers and executives. So Reg Evans, again, going back to the action learning movement, he says that there's no fool like an old fool, right? There are many who go on doing the same ineffectual things all of their life. There are also those who soberly and deliberately refuse to learn, because new knowledge, while consistent with the scientific method, is inconvenient for other reasons. So I think it's important that managers, when we're approaching problems, change, transformation processes, you name it, need to understand their own values, what is guiding their decisions and their own value systems, and what influence that is given to the system around them within the organization. So I think a lot of the success or failure of a lean transformation or digital transformation, it's down to personal past experiences and intentions of those in the hot seat. So I think we really need to be open for learning and changing the way we think in order to be successful. Of course, I mentioned that lean is a cognitive transformation. So this talk of adaptation, it's a very personal thing. We have to be able to adapt ourselves before we can adapt what's happening around us. And I think that's where lean really comes in, is because lean, it's not a set of practices that you can just implement to extract more value from your operational processes. We have to more likely see lean as an education system for continuously developing people. And when we involve everybody in improvement and learning every day, we can really see these big wins, the benefits of a lean transformation really taking effect. And in that respect, lean doesn't present us with a set of tools and techniques, but rather presents us with a set of conditions, a set of principles for engaging everybody in continuous improvement every day. I think if lean then is about learning, what drove us to write this book about the Lean Sensei is that if it's about learning, then we really need to look about how do we go about teaching? How do we go about teaching lean? And it's funny because Lean Sensei don't really teach. They certainly don't teach tools and techniques, but that was how it was misunderstood back in the day when these Japanese sensei were teaching the Western counterparts how to use lean thinking. So through teaching lean thinking using tools was misunderstood. Managers thought they were teaching operational best practices, and that's kind of what has been the effect hereafter. But the idea here is that the sensei goes in with the executives, with the management team, and teaches them through problem solving. So it's through challenging underlying assumptions and misconceptions which are causing, if you like, these wastes. So we're all familiar with the 7 wastes within lean production. But we more or less see these wastes as symptoms of deeper underlying syndromes. Okay, bad choices, misinformed choices made by managers who are following principles other than those that are lean. Of course, okay, so if we're going to succeed with lean, or if we're going to succeed with digital, or even if we're going to succeed with lean digital, we need to start from a problem. Of course, many sensei will tell you that no problem is the biggest problem, because problems are the raw material of learning. So when it comes to Industry 4.0 and the digitalization of our organizations, we should really start from a problem. What is the concrete problem that we're trying to address with or without technology? And I think something that we can use to help us with that is TPS as a learning frame. Okay, so Toyota Production System, those of you also familiar with lean are always familiar with Toyota Production System. Actually, when you ask the Toyota veterans, some of them are actually would rather the TPS stands for Thinking People System, because it's there as a set of conditions to encourage people to think deeply about the work, deeply about the things that we can see around us, how we work together as a team, how we work with managers and operators. It's a platform for thinking. So it gives us the conditions, for example, just in time, only using exactly what is needed right now to enable this flow. But of course, flow isn't the goal. And I think that's also very misunderstood. So if we can get to one-piece flow, it causes problems to come to the surface much quicker, so that we can act on them right now, right here. So I think that's the whole idea here, is that we use these principles or conditions as learning frames. That kind of brings us on to the learning route. Okay, so I'm here today to talk about blended network action learning. I'm going to start by leaving out the blended part, because when we discovered network action learning about 6 years ago, it was through engaging with a core set of strategic suppliers within the Kongsberg Maritime Subsea network. So, as I said in the start, I was employed by Kongsberg Maritime to lead the lean program in the subsea division. And in the big picture, the idea was that we would set out to address a fundamental organizational problem. So Kongsberg Maritime were facing the pressures of low-cost competitors and tough market conditions back in 2013, 2014. So the management wanted to improve the company's safety, quality, cost, and delivery performance. So typically, if those are the goals, we turn to lean production. So the idea was that we would use lean production for the company to enable the company to realize a continuous improvement culture. So we went on to this lean initiative. We designed the Kongsberg Way, which was the lean program, which we would implement division-wide in the subsea division, which also included strategic collaboration with a set of the company's preferred suppliers. Maybe I ask a question right now, Menno. Where would you start? I mean, let's make it interactive. So 2014, I've come straight out of my postdoc in Trondheim at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology with a PhD and a master in lean to implement lean in Kongsberg Maritime. What should we do?
Please, participants, participate.
Your guess is as good as mine. Where should we start?
You can type suggestions in the chat. Someone is typing in the chat.
Ooh.
Management support, that they understand what they are starting.
Yeah, good point. And that's pretty much where we started. So Uh, before we launched the Lean program live within the company, we had a 1-day executive Lean awareness course with the management team to go through what is Lean, what does it mean, what is the potential of it for the company, and how should we go forward. So it's a pretty good guess. That's what we did. And thereafter, of course, when you launch a Lean program, we started more or less where any other company would start, and that's learning the best practices.
Okay.
Learning
I've got
the best.
I've got another suggestion as well. Is
Okay.
awareness for all employees.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So to create that awareness for the employees, what we did is you see on the screen now L equals P. So I'm going to refer a lot to the action learning formula of Reg Revans here, and also the Coughlin and Coughlin's extension of that formula for network action learning. But the beginning of it is L equals P. So that means learning equals program knowledge. So when many companies begin a Lean program, we go out to try and absorb and get as much of the program knowledge as we can about Lean. So learning the Lean best practices is effectively learning the P of Lean. So program knowledge. So what we did is we took a lot of the employees and a lot of the managers from Kongsberg Maritime and also the supplier network to the Lean Lab, which is Norway's first and only full-scale Lean simulator at Sintef Manufacturing, funnily enough, in Raufoss. And we went there for a few days to learn together with our suppliers what is the P of Lean, the program knowledge of Lean, the best practice. And of course, we expected everybody to take these back home with them, and there you go. You know Lean, go and do it. But of course, that's really approaching the problem from a single loop learning perspective. So we're expecting people to go back and change what they're doing to get different outcomes. And I think this isn't really the way to go. This isn't really the way to go. So what action learning suggests is that we should take this P and combine it with Q. So take the program knowledge, what's written in books, what we can learn on courses, what we can maybe take away with us today from this webinar, and combine that with our own personal questioning insight. So Q is the questioning insight. So what insightful questions can I combine with this P to help me learn Lean? So what we did to try and trigger that questioning insight and that reflective process was take the representatives on several study visits. And you remember, Mano, we came to the Netherlands, I think it was 2016, maybe 17. Maybe later still, I don't remember. It's a long time ago now. But we visited a couple of best practice companies in the Netherlands. We visited some best practice company in Sweden, and we also went to Germany to visit some best practice exemplar companies within Lean, to see this P, to see this program knowledge in action, so that we can really question how are other people using this knowledge which they've acquired and putting it into practice. And then it was much easier to go back home to the factory, to the organizations we come from, and start to implement these techniques, these best practices. And in doing so, what we're doing is then engaging in double loop learning. So we're not just changing what we're doing, we're changing the way we're thinking about what we're doing, which only has a positive outcome, right? So if we change the way we think about what we're doing, we're really engaging in this double loop learning. But it didn't stop there, because remember, this isn't just about individual learning. So we want to learn within the organizations and across the organizations. So to the P and Q, we added O, organizing insight. So back in our organizations, what do these Lean practices mean for organization X, right? Where I am today. So what we had our Lean coaches from Sintef Manufacturing acting as learning facilitators or sensei, if you like, within each of these companies to try and engage them in this reflective process within their organizations. And from this, some of the feedback we got from the suppliers and the individuals engaged in this program were that yeah, it's really useful to get these external set of eyes onto our process and challenge us to think differently. So it really is about this challenging and reflective process, learning, action learning. But then, of course, to the program knowledge, the questioning insight, and the organizing insight, we also have to add interorganizational insight. So within and across the network, right? So this is building up to this network action learning. Okay. So within the supplier network, what we started to do was to go around, visit each other as a group, as a cohort, going and doing these rapid plant assessments. So you see here the 6 companies that were involved together with Kongsberg within this supplier development program, each going around visiting each other's shop floors, each other's Gemba, if you like, and carrying out a kind of a lean audit, a lean assessment. And what I challenged each person to do during this what do you call it, activity, was to come up with at least one suggestion for the host company, write it on a post-it note, one suggestion which you've observed today, challenge them to think about implementing a suggestion, and take away with you one takeaway, right? Steal with pride. What was cool that you saw at this organization today that you're going to take home with you and implement tomorrow, right? So, and in doing so, we really engaged in this inter-organizational insight, questioning and challenging each other, and becoming comfortable with each other. And I think one of the important things I didn't mention was that actually this supplier network, several of these suppliers were actually competitors with each other. So on the very first meeting we had in the Lean Lab to learn the P of Lean, many people were very uncomfortable. I mean, as my competitor over there, what are we doing here together? You know, you have that. It's that kind of question, and I'm very protective. But as the program went on, people were much more open with each other. So, I mean, many of you heard of open innovation. These competitors and suppliers and customers were working together on improving the whole system. And I think that's a core part of the learning and reflective process as well from this. So from the whole initiative here, what we did is we built up a form for a sand cone model, which puts the P of Lean at the bottom, at the core. So everybody has to learn the basics of Lean if you want to do Lean, right? But that's not really where the expertise is. So the expertise is in drawing the questioning insight together with the participants within and across the network. So I think when we start to see in real life how other companies are doing it, it really turns on a kind of a questioning spark within your head to start to really ask yourself, oh, maybe I should try this at home, and maybe I can try that. And I see that's how they're doing it. So it's this kind of aha moments, right? These eureka moments, which are helping to drive the continuous improvement and learning within the network. Those of you interested in reading more about this, we can make the article available after the webinar. So that's the network action learning, and what we discovered during that process is the importance of the role of the learning facilitator. So because learning is the heartbeat of Lean and it keeps momentum of continuous improvement going, the role of the learning facilitator is there to guide this learning. And in fact, the sensei is there to deepen management's understanding and the practice of Toyota Production System as a set of conditions for learning. So it's very important, we say, at least in the start of these network action learning initiatives, that you have this person as a learning facilitator to challenge you and to deepen your thinking. It's not just about taking a best practice out of a box and implementing it. It's not about taking a digital technology out of a box and implementing it. It's really deepening the understanding of why are you doing this in the first place? What problem are we trying to solve? So the sensei or the learning facilitator are always bringing back to what we call the discovery process. So Lean for me is a discovery process. We can use it to improve the delivery process, but we shouldn't see it, like I said, as a set of best practices to implement just for improving delivery. We have to use Lean as a learning system to discover opportunities, challenges, problems, which will then in turn, by solving them, have a strategic impact on the organization. So Lean is about growth. It's not about just eliminating waste to quickly deliver and fire people because we've got too much capacity. It's about creating that capacity by eliminating waste to grow the organization. So it's not about 30, 40, 50% improvement on quality performance and cost performance. It's about 3, 4, 500% growth for the organization. And to be able to get there, we really have to adopt this discovery and learning lens. It's not about improving the delivery system only. So network action learning then, we can frame this using the 4F model of the Lean strategy. So it's about finding interesting problems at the Gemba. So we have to start with a problem at the core. A problem is the core of the network action learning. We also have the set, which is the individuals that make up the network. But everybody will have a common interest in solving this problem. And I think also we have to make the distinction between a puzzle and a problem. Just like Roger Evans did. So puzzles are a type of problem which have a very obvious way of solving them. Those, we don't use network action learning for puzzles. Network action learning we use for complex organizational problems which have many more than one way of solving. If Menno addresses it by himself and I address it by myself, we probably come up with a different result. So that's the type of problem we want to address with network action learning. Starting from the Gemba, it's a discovery process. And when we're on the Gemba with managers and employees, we have to face these problems, and that means facing the limits of our current knowledge and also facing our misconceptions, which are perhaps fueling the problems in the first place. So it's a good question for this reflective process is then, why is this a problem in the first place, right? So what is the problem, but why is it actually a problem? And a lot of it has to do with the way we're thinking, misconceptions. And in understanding the problem, we can then frame these as learning challenges, which then helps us to identify any learning needs that we have within and across the network, as individuals, as organizations, and as supplier networks. And then finally, we can use the network action learning process to form learning projects and develop solutions. And the most important part here is, okay, you have a solution to the problem, but we want to share that solution as actionable knowledge across the network. Sharing is caring. So I think, and that's the important thing with the learning is, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with the network so everybody can benefit from it, right? So that was network action learning. Many of you are probably considering, well, what's the blended part? And I think what happened here is coronavirus hit us, and we were kind of pushed towards developing a blended way of solving problems within and across networks. So many companies, we say that it's actually coronavirus which is driving the digital transformation. And certainly for us, it's been driving the development of our blended approach. So beforehand, we were able to visit factories physically. You see me there pre-coronavirus without a beard and with shorter hair. But actually, given that we've had lockdowns and we've had restrictions on traveling and visiting and social distancing, this virtual mobility aspect has become even more important, not just for the Lean 4.0 project, but for organizations and people in general. So I think one of the things that we've been using, you see on the picture on the right, is this RealWear head-mounted tablet. So it's a voice-activated device which you can wear. It's basically an iPad for your head. You have a screen which sits on your cheek, and you can. So it's Teams enabled. We could have just as well have taken this meeting on that today, and it has a camera. So what we can do is we can send this device to organizations that we aren't otherwise able to visit physically, to actually offer assisted reality, so remote support. So many of you probably heard of augmented reality, virtual reality. I know Peter Heinz is here today. You're developing a lot with virtual reality together with your companies. But assisted reality actually gives us this remote support dimension where we can send it to managers. They can put it on the headset, connect on Teams, and we can go Gamba with them from the comfort of our own homes, to help them see what they're seeing, hear what they're seeing, hear what they're hearing, and challenge them to think maybe differently about what are the signs, symptoms, and syndromes that we're discovering on this discovery process. Remember, it's all about lifting the focus from delivery to discovery during a Gamba walk. So I think it's early days yet. We've been able to try it out last month, actually. So Melanie and Mirko in the Netherlands and in Italy. Actually, Mirko's Italian, but he's sitting in Trondheim. But still, we were able to connect digitally with the headset from our learning factory down in the south of Norway, and take a Gamba walk together with the CEO of the organization there, and really understand what are we seeing, what is the thought process that is guiding Steinar with developing this sustainable learning factory for recirculating furniture on the market. And also last month we had a similar initiative with Optimar, which is a company that makes fish factories, fish processing factories for on board and on land, based in Ålesund. Richard Schofield, the COO of the company, wearing the headset. And actually we were joined on that Gamba walk by many representatives from Lean Forum Midwest here in Norway. So it was a Lean Forum event, a kind of a master class for what should we look for on a Gamba walk. So we were able to kind of challenge each other into where should we go and look, and push Richard around in the factory to go and take us to see what we should be looking for. So I think the whole idea here is if we're going to pursue this kind of virtual Gamba learning experience, is to engage the Belgians, the Dutch, the Germans, and the Norwegians together in this kind of collaborative learning environment on the Gamba to discover problems and help organizations develop solutions with or without technology. I think it's not technology which is being pushed onto the market here, but we're using technology to help organizations grow. And I think just to sum up a little bit now, of course, I said problems are at the center of the whole Banal methodology, blended network action learning. And I think so. Finding problems starts at the Gamba. If we can't physically visit the Gamba, we can be there remotely using technology. So that's a good tick the box for the blended part. Then solving those problems starts with fresh questions. So we have to question and challenge the participants to understand what is causing these problems in order to solve them effectively. The set or the group within the network either possesses or has access to the knowledge required to start addressing the problem. That's why within the Lean 4.0 network, we have academics, we have industrial companies, we have organizations within Europe who are all sitting on different pockets of knowledge which could help each other solve these problems. Of course, when we're going to solve a problem, we should always make a hypothesis. What do we expect to happen if we do X? What's going to happen? And to do that, we need some action. And then the learning itself emerges through this continuous reflective dialogue. Learning shouldn't be something we save for the end. It shouldn't be the last outcome of a project. But always through the problem-solving process, we should be engaging in this reflective dialogue. And I think that's important where the learning facilitator or the sensei comes in, right? To challenge us to think differently continuously. I'll end on this one. Toyota say good products come from good thinking, and to make good products, first we have to make good people. So I think that's what it's all about. It's about engaging people in learning together within and across organizations. So that's me. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It was very interesting, especially the message is, please do try this at home.
Yeah.
And the basic message is start learning together and try to improve your network as much as possible and be open with it. I would like to invite all the participants in asking questions. I'm sure you are interested and you want some more details. By the way, Robert Jan Cowie shared a link to an interesting program here in the Netherlands. And please, participants, do you have any questions? Well, in the meantime, I have a small question. Your network at Kongsberg was mainly by suppliers and Kongsberg as a special hub. Can you tell us something about how to work in a network where it's not one main actor like Kongsberg, but in the general, not supplier main actor network, but more actors? Can you tell us something about that?
Certainly. So it's something that we're trying to definitely set up within the Lean 4.0. I mean, it has its challenges, particularly given the restrictions on travel. I mean, it's much easier to meet people physically, but the virtual mobility part, we need to benefit from that. So I think it's always been a kind of a challenge to engage the representatives from different countries at the same time. So I know during the project we've had companies in each country present their problems and their improvement projects, but pretty much it's been Norwegian people in the Norwegian meeting and Dutch people in the Dutch meeting. But I know we've had some core people as well. But I think it seems to be a challenge. So I don't have any answers. But
well, one thing I was triggered by is that you said at Kongsberg we had some competitors.
Yeah.
And we put them together. At the start, they were a little anxious, but after a while, they went open and they learned from each other.
Exactly.
So I think that's something we should take with us. That it's not only that you have in your chain a chain of learning, but you can learn with competitors and other companies.
Yeah, but I think certainly what eased that tension, Mano, was it was driven a lot by Kongsberg. Because they were Kongsberg suppliers, it was more or less expected that you contribute. It was a physical meeting for starters, so that also was a little easier, even though you're meeting your competitors. But I think what the secret there, and it emerged during the research actually, it was the unplanned social activities which really started to open things up. So after that first day in the Lean Lab, we decided let's go for an unplanned informal dinner together. Who remembers what those are like? But going sitting down, sharing a meal over a glass of wine, it really opens up. And I think one of the sensei that we refer to a lot, he says that the night session is the most important session. I think that's when you really relax and you get to know each other, and that helps with the challenging and reflective process as well. So, and that's very difficult to do blendedly, right? On a virtual basis. So.
I understand. And what always is, because you say problems are company specific. They're not just like you said, when you copy Toyota to another company, you solve a problem at Toyota from the 60s, and you don't solve your own problem.
Yeah.
And especially
makes little sense. Makes little sense,
yes,
right?
why
would you implement Toyota's production system in your company?
Yeah.
But to implement it as a frame and a way of thinking makes perfect sense, because it's how we discover the challenges and the problems that we need to solve, right?
Yeah, and then we can learn from each other. And I've got a question especially for you from Mr. Beckers. What's the difference between the book Lean Strategy and the book The Lean Sensei?
One's black and one's white.
Well, that's clear.
I don't have the lean strategy, but the lean strategy, it's exactly what it says on the tin. I think that's a good place to start. If you haven't read the lean strategy, please read the lean strategy. It changes. I mean, most managers that I've given that book to read, it's changed the way they think, and they've really come back as a reinvigorated for their lean transformation. So start there. It's a way of describing how is a lean strategy different to a traditional strategy. and the 4 Fs are really documented well in that book. So it's find, face, frame, form, as opposed to defining what we think the problems are in the boardroom, deciding what we're going to do about it, driving it out onto the organization, and then dealing with the problem, so the consequences. So it's a Gemba up process of strategy planning and strategy execution.
Okay. Can I invite Mr. Heinz? He wants to say something. He raised his hands.
Yeah,
hi Heinz, good to see you.
Yeah. Lots of interesting things. I was wondering how much you'd looked into the Toyota Kyokukai approach, which has some parallels with what you're talking about, particularly when you get down to the 3rd tier, where they basically have action learning groups where you get a sensei, which could be from Toyota or it could be from one of the suppliers, who then goes and runs an experiment in one of the companies, and the other suppliers attend and they all learn from that, and then the suppliers are expected to go and run a similar experiment for themselves, and then the sensei would come and have a look at it. So there's some parallels with what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think early on I presented the initiative was called Network for Supplier Innovation, and I think several times I presented it as Kyoryokukai. So it's one of the first initiatives of its type we've seen in Norway, and I think this was very much part of your earlier research in Wales with the supplier associations. So I think it's something that it hasn't been used so much, and I think it's to a great benefit when we can use something like that. So.
I think so, and just also commenting on the network thing. I mean, one of the things I'm doing is running a European network, which is obviously suffering the same problems in COVID that you're talking about. And I mean, we recently ran a session in Toyota in the UK, and we just simply did it with smartphone technology. So we had one guy that was filming in a bay room, and the other guy was talking, and then we had the people on, I can't remember, his Teams or Zoom, and we were just interacting in the same sort of way that you're talking, so that you could ask questions and you could interact and so forth. So I think we're getting forced to think in this virtual way, to do the same sort of things, which, 2 years ago, we'd say that was impossible to do it that way. So it's good learning. I think the new normal will be not like the old normal. So it's good to know. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Any more questions? Then I would like to thank all the participants for your attention, and I would want to thank Daryl for his clear presentation. It was, for me, inspiring. I knew already a little bit about it because I heard him
talked about it before.
We talked about it before, but I think it's very important that we acknowledge that we learn from each other and we do not solve problems, but we grow our organizations. And if you use that as a core to address the problems in your own organization and to step beyond your problems and step into your organizational growth and your problem-solving capacity, I think we make big steps. Thank you very much. I will stop the recording now, and have a nice day.
Go enjoy the warm.
Yeah.
Thank you.